Hello, this is Mrs. Butcher, and this video is over parabolas and circles. It's about completing the square to get standard form. Alright, so as a review, our equations for parabolas, if it is an up or down, it's x minus h all squared equals 4p y minus k. And if it's a left or right, it's y minus k all squared equals 4p x minus h. And then all of our circles have the same equation, x minus h all squared plus y minus k all squared equals r squared. But you could multiply these out. You could FOIL this and distribute this, FOIL this, distribute this. You could FOIL this and FOIL this, and you could write it all out in what we call non-standard form. And when they're in non-standard form, it's kind of hard to tell which conic it really is. So you have to look closely. And the key is if it's a parabola, it's going to have only one squared term. Right? See, only one little square here. Whereas if it's a circle, we're going to have an x and a y both squared, and they're both going to have the same exact coefficient on them. So we'll say both x squared and y squared, both same coefficient. So that means if you had like 2x squared and 3y squared, it wouldn't be a circle. It would be something else, an ellipse actually, that we're going to learn about later. So just remember they have to be exactly the same for it to be a circle. Alright, so here's 4 example problems. You might want to pause and write them down, but we're going to identify the following as either parabolas or circles. So for the first one, we're going to look at it and we're always going to count how many squared terms we have. And in this case, we have only one. So if it has only one squared term, it's a parabola. And if I were to ask you even further, is it vertical or horizontal? Since x is squared, you could tell me it was vertical. Alright, number 2. We count the squared terms, and there are 2 of them. The coefficients on both of these are both positive 1. They are exactly the same. That makes this a circle. For number 3, we look at the squared terms. There's only one. This time it's a y squared, so this is a parabola. And it would be a horizontal one, if anybody asked. And the last one, we have a 3y squared over here. And on the other side of the equal sign, we have a negative 3x squared. So you've got to think a little harder about this one. When you get it all on the same side of the equation, that would be a 3y squared and a 3x squared, both positive, right? And so that means that these are exactly the same. And even though they're 3's, they're both 3's, and they're both positive 3's, so that makes this a circle. Alright, so that's classifying. Alright, so now we want to take our parabola, well, this is the first one from the examples we did earlier, and we want to convert it to standard form. Remember, standard form is the form that's on your formula chart. It's the 4px or 4py part that we talked about. So we're going to convert this by completing the square. And we did learn completing the square a while ago, but I think a refresher is in order. So what we're going to do is first we must group all the x's together on the left and the y's and the constant together on the right, because we know that we want this to look like x minus h all squared equals 4p y minus k. That's our goal. So I'm going to put the 2x squared plus 4x together here. And then on the right hand side, I'll keep the y, and then we'll subtract 9. So the first thing we do is group the x's together on the left and the y's and the constant together on the right. After we do that, we want to factor this 2 out of the left-hand side, because we can't complete the square unless the squared variable is all by itself. Okay, so we'll put that 2 here, and then a parenthesis, and then we have x squared plus, and if I divide the 2 out of the 4x, I have plus 2x. And then I'm going to leave a space and close the parenthesis, and then say equals y minus 9. And the reason I left the space is because my next step is going to be to complete the square. Okay, so if you remember, completing the square means we need nothing in front of our x squared, and then we're going to take this term, the b part, and divide it by 2. So half of 2 is 1, and then we square that. So 1 squared is 1, and I add it here. But remember, if you complete the square on the left side of an equation, you have to add that amount, that same amount, to the right side to keep it equal. Only this 1 that we added is inside these parentheses, and it is being multiplied by this 2. So we actually added 2 units to the left-hand side. So on the right-hand side, we have to add 2. Add 2 times that number to the right. So if I'd have factored out a 5, I would have had to multiply 5 times that number and then added it to the right, whatever it is. But you have to remember that. It's very important. So then after you do that, you're going to just factor the quadratic part here, just this set of parentheses, and join like terms. I'm going to put the 2, and then x squared plus 2x plus 1 is x plus 1 all squared. Remember that number is just half of b. Equals, and then y minus 9 plus 2 would be y minus 7. So now we have this almost looking like this. Almost. But there's a 2 here that we don't want to have. That can't be there because there's nothing here. So we need to move it to the other side. Now the thing is, I don't want to divide everything by 2 because my y minus k that I want, it's not divided by anything, so that's not going to help me. But I do need a 4p. I need something out in front of the y minus k part. So if I multiply both sides of this equation by 1/2, it will go away on the left and it will appear on the right. So now our final standard form is x plus 1 all squared equals 1/2, which is your 4p. If you were to have to graph it, you would need to work with that, but the 1/2 is your 4p, and then y minus 7. And that is in standard form. That looks just like that. So we are finished. All right, last example. We're going to convert this circle to standard form by completing the square. Earlier this is the same one we did from earlier. We said, okay, because it's got a y squared and an x squared and they're the same coefficient, that's a circle. And the standard equation of a circle is x minus h all squared plus y minus k all squared equals r squared, which is just a number. So what I need to do is to make this look like this. And it sounds scary at first, but it's not. We're going to do the same thing that we did in the last problem. We're going to group all the x's together over here. We're going to group the y's together here, and then we're going to put the constant stuff over there. Did I leave something off? Yeah, that's an x, 26x. Sorry about that. All right, so I'm going to put the x parts together. That means I've got x squared. I'm going to put it over here. And then I have equals negative 26x, so I'm going to add 26x to this side. And this is going to be the x part, and I'm going to leave a space because I know I'm going to need to complete the square. Then we're going to have the y part. So I've got y squared plus 28y. I'm going to leave a space so I can complete the square, and I'm going to close that group of parentheses. And then I'm going to take this 364 over to the other side, equals negative 364. Now that we've grouped our like terms, we need to complete the square. In this case, we don't have to factor anything out to the left of either this one or this one. They both already start with just plain variable squares. They have a 1 there, so that's okay. So I just need to look at this. 26, half of 26 is 13. And 13 squared is 169. And remember, if I add it to the left, 1 times 169, I have to add it to the right. All right, and then for this other group, half of 28 is 14. 14 squared is 196. And so 1 times 196, I need to add 196 to the other side too. Remember, everything you do to the left must also happen to the right. So now we're going to factor. This group becomes x plus 13 all squared. Remember, that number 13 is just half of 26 and the square root of 169. And then factor y squared plus 28 plus 196, that's y plus 14 all squared, equals, and then when you do this math in your calculator, you get 1. So that's your circle in standard form. If I were to ask you to graph it, the center would be at -13, -14, right, because h and k, and 1 is r squared. So we need to take the square root of 1, and the square root of 1 just so happens to be 1, so this would be a circle with a radius of 1. And that's it. That's it for these notes. See you guys at school. Bye.